Kind of a funky title, Senior Director of Documentation and Doc Experience, which is basically the two sides of our Doc or developer portal, the developer content versus the Doc Experience, which is the portal functionality, UI, user experience. That said, a quick overview of what Cloudinary is. The one-liner is that it's an image and video platform founded by 3 developers in 2012, basically bootstrapped SaaS. And for the first 6 years, API product, a huge one, but one API product in mobile developers. So the entire company is very developer oriented. Starting in 2018, we released our first non-developer product, although it was designed to work together with that API product to provide a more end-to-end. The idea is basically the API product enables developers to do everything they need to do with images and videos in terms of generating all sorts of adaptations of original videos, delivering them optimized and things like that. And the non-developer part is more for the marketing team who wants to prepare all sorts of assets to be delivered in websites and mobile apps. Just to give an idea of size, we have about 10,000 paying accounts, from very tiny ones to large enterprise. 40,000 active accounts, which clarifies that we've got about 30,000 at any given time that are using that freemium model. And just to clarify, going forward, the intention for Cloudinary is to remain an API first company targeting developers, but still expanding our multi-product offering, which of course has presented challenges for us and thus we are a doc portal and not a developer portal, because the majority of our content is for developers. There is some not, and at this point it's still all on one site. So going a little bit into that tech stack, we've got a Ruby on Rails backend, and quick history on that. I mentioned we have 3 developers that founded the company. They were all Ruby on Rails developers, and one of them took ownership once they started selling to make sure that we had documentation, and started automating whatever he needed to automate to get that documentation published, and basically ground up built a doc product without that really being the intention. That said, it actually was a very, very impressive first version of a doc portal infrastructure. And once a doc team was hired and we took over the doc site, we did evaluate other tech stacks and have continued to occasionally over the years. Like I think we've heard in a lot of presentations, both this year and previous years, the of having your own proprietary outfits of moving on to other established platforms. We are open to looking toward a new Node React type tech stack in the future, but right now pretty happy with this one, and we've really improved the infrastructure of it over the years, and we're pretty happy. Front end side, it's static site generated HTML with JavaScript and styling. Of course, the source files are maintained in Markdown, mostly standard Markdown. We have some proprietary Markdown helpers that trigger various functionality when we build the static site. One of those is a call to something called a code widget service, which I'm going to highlight later, so I wanted to already mention it now. Then we're committing everything, of course, into GitHub in terms of source management, PR reviews, very, very much as code in terms of the way we work. Making sure that we're working with our developers for PR reviews. We work together with them. We have the same sprints as they do. We have a lot of Jira and GitHub automations. I could give a whole talk on that, but I will let that go. Our commits trigger CI builds and some linting, link checking and things like that. And at the last stage, we have Jenkins, where we're actually building that static site, triggering our Algolia indexing and deploying it out to S3 and caching on CDN for quicker delivery. And as far as the team, and now I'll come back to that two-sided title. So I am the director of documentation, which is about the developer experience and documentation content, and the director of documentation experience, which is the whole experience of that doc site, the way that site is developed and the functionality behind it. So that goes with kind of two separate teams. So we have an API and DevX content team that I manage, four incredible writers with a very strong coding background. And again, I mentioned that this title was intended to really communicate the fact that they go much beyond classic API docs into other developer experience content, such as video tutorials, code sandboxes, um, demo apps, and all sorts of things that we develop that go into our documentation to add as much interactivity as possible within the portal, and other content that they write and create that would go also outside the portal into developer blogs or video tutorials on YouTube, or part of participating in various online or live training programs, participation in DevRel conferences and things like that, which brings us to Docs and DevRel. Until a year ago, Docs was under product and DevRel was under marketing, and we did not have a lot of interaction. We came together a year ago under a developer experience umbrella and with a VP of DevX, bringing us much closer together. We're still two separate teams, but we work really tightly together. And under this DevX umbrella, we have OKRs that are to the global developer experience, which I think is really, really important and valuable. On the site side, so until literally 1 quarter ago, the site, I mentioned that it had originally been built by our founder and was handed off to us back in around 2017. And we basically have been developing it since then. Again, those great content writers, especially one or two of them, are really, really talented and building out functionality on the doc site, and did it on the side of creating this DevX content. And we did outsource a variety of large projects, which did enable us over time to add a lot of functionality and redesign to the doc site, but very slowly over time. One of the things I harped on for quite a while in the company was trying to communicate the concept of docs as a product. The doc site is a product, and it did take quite a while to get from great support for the doc site, everybody acknowledging just how important it is to registrations and things. Very, very data oriented company, and we've been gathering data on this portal for quite a while. I'll talk about it later. But it took a while to get from the point of saying, hey, yes, the doc site is super important, to, hey, we are ready to dedicate our R&D resources and away from some of our other product development to actually looking at the doc site as a product. So since Q3 of this year, the portal is considered an official product. I'm kind of working as the functional architect for that, working on the research and roadmap, and kind of helping with the long-term decisions and analyzing the data to decide what to do next. But we now have a product manager and an R&D team, designer, QA engineer. It's not their only task, that team. They have other responsibilities, but it is about a third of their responsibilities, which means they now also have OKRs around the documentation site success, which is really awesome. And I have seen in a lot of the presentations here that there are product managers and developers from companies working on the doc site, which I think is amazing and has been really worthwhile for us already. So to dig into the onboarding journey itself, one of the things that I think is really important of thinking about is that onboarding even the onboarding to our portal begins before a customer ever has seen our doc portal. And the first of that is SEO. One of the other presenters here also talked about SEO. Put 2 exclamation points here because it is really super important. Most developers find content by searching in Google. Even if they're looking for content in our site, they're more likely to do it through Google first, making sure the pages actually rank for the search queries that we expect our developers to be looking at. And once it shows up, making sure that that title and that description are something that's going to talk to that developer, that's really their first onboarding to your portal. And it's really important to think about exactly what they're going to see. We have 400 some odd pages, and making sure the SEO is right for each of those pages is something that we put a lot of effort into. Just talking about social media and thought leaders and getting the word out to developers before they come to you. We try to stay really involved in that as well, and making sure that the linking that's coming from all of those different posts and things are linking to the right places in our portal is, again, another way to expose people to that portal, and making sure that we do it in the right way. These are some other quick examples of ways that we think developers are exposed to our portal before they really get to it, and that we work closely in developing this content as well. This developers page is one that the combined DevX team, the DevRel and the Docs team, with the VP of DevX developed to kind of have a page in the corporate marketing site that is less corporate-y, that is less salesy, that's really saying, hey, developers, we understand you, and we know what kinds of questions you're asking. We're giving you a demo right up at top that you can play with and experiment with, and lots of other content on that page that will help users get to the right places, many of which are going to bring them into the documentation. Product pages within the corporate site that marketing is responsible for, but we're working closely with them again to make sure there's a consistent messaging and a consistent code examples and things like that. This is this far on the right. You guys can see my pointer, I hope. This far side on the right is the actual developer console that when you first sign up, this is where you're going to land on this get started page of the console. And again, working together with the product managers who are developing the product to make sure that the get started there is going to be consistent with our documentation information, and all of these little learn more sections here are things that are linking into our docs, and again, coordinating on all of that. First place that we see that the onboarding journey is super important is the homepage of the docs. What you're seeing here is actually a sneak peek of the new homepage that we're going to be releasing in about a week. So you guys are now the first people outside the company to see what this looks like. The one, if you look at it today, looks a little bit different, although a lot of the elements are similar. So basically, I think that encouraging exploration as soon as somebody hits your site is super important. Making sure you've got a big search right at the top. We've added a nice little feature here. I can actually demo it. Sure you're seeing that. If you, when you first land on this page, we've given popular terms that automatically populate the search and let me see a variety of search results right off the bat. Is a nice way to enable people to really explore right off the bat and get a lot of content and understand what they can do with a particular capability. I'll come back to this just for speeds. We really feel like the homepage is the place to help people understand where they can get started and what kinds of different types of get started content that they have. Basic get started on particular topics that they're interested in. Making sure to speak their language. Other people mentioned it as well. We do have a very large number of various SDKs and libraries, ones we maintain and community libraries, and making sure that when somebody lands on this homepage, they're seeing those logos right off the bat, because it really helps to keep them on the site and decide to dive in. We worked very hard. This new homepage has a lot more content at the very top compared to the site if you look at it live today. But we really worked hard in the design to make sure that these logos are still going to show up before scrolling. We know as soon as they land there, we want to make sure that they are seeing that we support the languages they love. Another area here is just to make sure that we're exposing the end-to-end story. A lot of people come to Cloudinary for a specific functionality. A lot of times people have heard of Cloudinary in terms of optimizing their images and videos, and they may be coming mostly for that to start with. That's what developers are often thinking of first, making sure they realize the story that it's in and understand what the whole end-to-end process is that they can accomplish, and that they're not limited to the one thing they may have come for. This is just a general note about making sure that we have a theme color and that it's using the system setting. We added dark mode probably about 6 or 8 months ago, and then a bit after that set it up so that it automatically detects your system theme. And we got most of our compliments about dark mode after it was automated to get to that system theme, so that when people developers land on this doc page, if they're comfortable with dark mode, they see it right off the bat. They don't have to select it anywhere, and it really has gotten a lot of positive feedback. Seems like a minor thing, but again, getting that, ooh, this is for me, is really that first step of the onboarding journey, even before they start learning how to use the product. Once they start to dive into the doc site, a few things I'll point out, and this also answers one of the questions I saw when I started presenting before. I did mention that we have one major API product, and then we have some other non-technical products. So one of the things we did very recently, all of our guides for both the technical and technical products used a menu that looked like this. We now separated it out, so we kind of a product selector first. Each product that you select, you're going to get a different menu here. So we're in programmable media, which is our API and developer product. This menu is limited to that API stuff. And in people who are non-technical and they choose a product that's non-technical, they're going to get a menu that has no mention of references and SDKs and things that scare them. So it's a way of separating it into sites, but still keeping it all under one. As far as get started, we made sure it's a dedicated menu, not hidden under guides or anywhere else. And then when you choose it, the left sidebar isn't a table of contents of everything that we offer. It used to be that way a long time ago. You got the table of contents for the entire documentation site, and it's very noisy. We wanted people to be able to find what they're looking for really easily and make sure they understand we're offering for different learning styles. So we have a full video tutorial library, all sorts of explorers and code sandboxes and demo apps, all those things I mentioned that our great DevX team is creating. SDK quick starts, which I'm going to show in more detail in a second, and a developer onboarding guide, which is a little bit more textual, more instructional, and different people are going in different ways, and we can see how in our metrics we can see how different people are using the different ones. Even in a more instructional textual setup, we still are focusing on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that really helps customers understand what the process is going to be. I mentioned at the very beginning when I talked about our tech stack about our code widget service. It's something really nice that we developed in-house. So basically, when we build our static site, in our markdown, we're actually only passing this code in one language. And when we call, when the doc site is generated, it's actually calling this service, talking to each of the SDKs, getting back the same code in each of those SDKs, and building this code widget as part of the build process. And it's an amazing thing. We have it everywhere throughout all of our guides and all of our onboarding content. It's obviously wonderful for developers to be able to have this in their own language. It's wonderful for us that we don't have to write the code manually in all of these languages or worry about any kind of manual copy-paste mistakes or anything else. And we're gathering data on which tabs are being collected. We're gathering data on these copy code buttons. A couple other things that you can see on every page. You always have the ratings page, similar to what other people have presented. I think that's important as part of your onboarding to let customers know right off the bat that they can talk to you and communicate and interact. And of course, this ratings opens up a forum where they can give us more feedback, which automatically gets propagated into our support system. The form has an optional option to say you want people to get back to you, and if so, then to add contact information. And in those cases, we do reply via our support system. So they're getting responses when they ask for it. Otherwise, we're just obviously taking into account whatever feedback they gave, and we're monitoring the ratings. And lastly, as far as this goes, signing up, we want to make sure it's super easy. It's available on every page. It's, of course, in our onboarding material. We also have CTAs about signing up. We're tracking where people are signing up from throughout our entire documentation set, which pages are most likely to trigger that sign up. So that's something that's super important in terms of the onboarding process as well. The quick starts that I mentioned, it's something we added about a year ago, was really lacking until then, in my opinion. We have a quick start for each and every language. And basically, it's something we tested that will be a 5 minutes or less process. Very simple, telling you what files to create, what to copy paste. And within 5 minutes, you're able to actually run code that not only gets you configured, but actually enables you to run through an end to end, very realistic scenario. And then from there, obviously, you now have a whole code base that you can start doing more things with. Got amazing feedback on this. Even a thought leader who was doing some sort of a tutorial and used Cloudinary for a small bit of what he was doing. And his way of showing it was grab the Python SDK Quick Start. We do have in this completed code a GitHub a repo where they can just grab it. He forked it and started using that as his way of making changes and doing it, which was pretty much the best validation we felt like we could get for these. But we also do see in our metrics that a lot of people are using them. And the last little thought around onboarding is that onboarding doesn't end when you've run that first API call or you've gotten something up and running, but onboarding is an ongoing process. Every time you, Cloudinary in particular, there's really probably 1,000 different features that are possible. It's huge. It's really hard for customers to understand what they can do with it and which features are relevant for them. So we really try customers grow and think of the onboarding process as something that's ongoing. Basic concepts of cross-linking where we can when we're documenting a feature, letting them know what else is relevant, making sure we have release notes going out. We've got them about every month going out. And we decided it was important enough to have a dedicated menu for release notes. So it's very visible and invites people to have a look at them. We also have an RSS feed that developers or any customer can register for to get notifications when the release notes go out. And we use this RSS feed also for ourselves to push these notifications into other places. We also have a Discord channel, other community letters, and we're able to push the notifications to those places through the same RSS feed. Talking about use cases. So when we're teaching someone how to use a feature, making sure they understand that there's, what that full end-to-end use case can look like and how to combine multiple features to really accomplish a full use case. And the more we kind of feel like we expose those use cases and really walk people through things, it really will help them to understand that it's worth taking that next step, even if they've got something working, to try that next thing. I do want to talk a bit about the metrics. We use a ton of metrics. I'm going to pop them up here. These are basically coming from our dashboard. Most of these are GA4 related, so we are capturing visitors, both the users that have not yet registered versus those that are registered. How many people are signing up? This is kind of aggregate data from some quarter quite a while ago. It's not our latest data, but we're able to filter any of this data on this page that I'm showing you here, also for specific pages. So when we make changes to a page, then we're able to actually track if more visitors are coming. If we've done something with SEO, we can see if our changes are actually impacting the visits, if they're impacting the registrations, or anything else. Just other examples of data we capture. We probably capture about 50 different events. So I've just scattered a few different ones that we see. Those code widgets that I mentioned, these are the tabs that are being clicked there. The satisfaction ratings that I showed on the pages, we're capturing this. This is the global data for the site, but we also can see what's happening on different pages and which pages are getting the most feedback and which pages are getting the most yellows and reds, or 2 ratings, and understand that this is the page that's gotten the most feedback, and a lot of it is not a 5. So let's what we can do about that. Other data, search data on what's being searched the most from Algolia, and how many accounts are using search. This is not from GA4, but rather from Crazy Egg. We get heat maps. And for example, the new doc homepage that I showed, this is actually our existing live homepage shown in light mode here. We used the information that we saw here in the heat map, the terms that people were searching up here, to help decide what to emphasize in our new page. So the information is really driving our decisions going forward. And this one's just kind of like interesting thing for teams. separate from all the other data in the site. This is actually using the Jira API. Everyone in our team, when they do tasks, are marking the category of the task and also an effort weight. So we're able to multiply those and see where we're putting our effort. So for example, in whatever where this was captured, we can see that only about 30% of our time went to documenting new features, which is what some people might think that, well, that's what documentation teams do. But no, we actually do much more. This is our team separate from what the product team or R&D team is. This is our team developing functionality on the doc site, various content improvements, all sorts of DevX content that we're putting to the doc site, or usability changes in terms of formatting and restructuring and things like that, blog posts and tutorials and demos that are going outside of the doc site. So everything that's here is reported on a quarterly basis to the really to the entire company, and it really does help to make sure that decision makers and business people within the company are understanding the value of the doc site and where it impacts. And a lot of the product managers who are deciding on product features to develop next are coming to us to say, hey, how many people are visiting this doc page that covered this feature? How many people are using this language or that language when we're developing new SDKs? So the information we're gathering from the doc site not only drives our decisions about what we're going to do in the portal, but also actually helps alongside other, of course, logs and API information that we have about the product usage. The usage in the doc site is actually information that our product managers are looking at when they're making decisions of what to develop in future quarters or where to improve things. And just a quick last zoom out as I close up here. In addition to the data that we capture about the portal, there's a lot of information that we're using about the product usage itself. This is a piece of it. We obviously have tons of other information, API logs and things, but just a very high level overview of the fact of what types of features different accounts are using, and free, self-serve, and enterprise, and seeing the different percentage usage of things. If enterprise users are using a particular developer API feature a lot, then it may be because they're getting hand-holding from a CS engineer telling them, hey, you should be doing this. And the free and self-serve are less aware, and we say this is just as valuable for our free and self-serve users, and saying, hey, these are places where we may want to have more emphasis on these features throughout their docs. So basically saying, just like the product managers are using the doc metrics, we're using the product metrics as well. Other metrics that we pay a lot of attention to are the self-serve metrics. Basically, we have across the company a self-serve task force, which combines all sorts of groups throughout the company, the doc team, the DevRel team, the product teams, marketing, community, all these different groups that are serving the self-serve developer community. We work this self-serve task force, and these types of metrics are ones that they are looking to drive. And every quarter, we're responsible for communicating what are we going to be doing within the portal to actually further drive a focus on acquisition, registration, activation on these different areas, and at the end of the quarter to actually report back with data on how the changes that we made actually impacted those things. And of course, there's financial data as well that we're looking at, ARR and MRR, monthly recurring revenue from customers. From the self-serve perspective, our goal is, of course, to migrate people from free to paid. Looking at that, one of the things we want to do with our doc portal is to not only measure how many people are registering from our site, but actually to work with the data team, which we're in the process of doing now, to be able to see metrics on how many people are visiting the doc site after they've registered and before they've become paid, and which pages are they most visiting in the weeks before they become paid, and using that kind of information to both understand what drives paid customers to become paid, and also to understand to what extent our doc site is actually contributing to helping customers get from that free stage to paid. And just because it was asked earlier, we do also give data to end users. This is within the product console, information on, requests, their API requests, their bandwidth, the assets that they're generating, which ones are being used the most. So just like metrics are very important for us, they're of course very important for our customers. And these are just some examples to show that that is something else that we're providing in the console. And thank you guys for staying. And sorry that my presentation was broken up into two pieces, but that ends it for me. And I'll be happy to answer any questions either here or afterwards in the roundtables. So appreciate it. And to you, Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you very much. Wow. I especially found riveting at the last part that you were saying how you are, what specifically you're looking to show that the portal is part of revenue generation. This question came up last week also, and that was very, very interesting. Thank you for talking about that. Chris is saying that the existence of a VP of developer experience is a pretty big statement on how important this is for Cloudinary. Um, how did this come? Is this a title you've seen in other places? Like, how did this happen?
Great question. There's a few pieces to it. Again, the company itself is very developer oriented, very API oriented. Our main product is for developers, so developer experience is a super important thing. And one of the topics that has come up years over years over years is because developers are our main audience. Pretty much everybody in the company is trying to work on developer experience. Support is, and community and training and all of these different groups besides the DevRel and the doc team that are currently grouped together under DevX. And this feeling of it being very siloed and every team kind of saying, hey, we're each deciding on our own what does developer experience mean and what kind of content and functionality we should be putting around improving the developer experience. And that comment has come up 1,000 times over the last 7 years. And basically, the answer to that was that we really do need to bring it together and bring that focus together. And the start, again, was having a VP of developer experience in charge of Docs and DevRel. And we're actually expanding that now. Our VP of Dev Experience is now also taking ownership of self-serve overall. So it's bringing it that next level into basically his title very recently changed to VP of Developer Experience and Self-Serve. So it's saying, hey, our developer experience and our self-serve are really tied together, and that now makes that umbrella much bigger and really brings in all of these different groups that are looking at self-serve and answering what you're saying, Laura, about the revenue and the financial focus. And it goes before that even. There's steps to financial understanding about the step from the first activation to becoming active to increasing and growing usage to becoming paid and monitoring all of that. And the understanding of how important that data is like something that's really become a big focus at Cloudinary. So that's kind of where it came from. You do see it a bit in other places, but it's definitely, we've also seen VP of DevRel in a few places. But yeah, we're really happy with it. It's already brought a lot more focus into direction, and I think it's going to keep going that way.
I'll probably have to look at the recording 3 more times because I was glued to what you were saying. Well, it's personally very interesting for me that activation. How does that? Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. Congratulations for what you have done here. I'm looking forward to seeing the new portal live.